Alright, let's run it. So I've only seen Lego Lord of the Rings, I think. And the speedrun route for that is really fucking cool. There's a lot of really good out of bounds stuff, but I don't know any of the Lego Star Wars ones, so I'm hoping this is going to be really glitch heavy, though I'm skeptical. I imagine there's a good chance it's going to be mainly just playing the game normally fast. Which isn't as cool, but hopefully it has a great story around it. This game has insane glitches. Oh, thank God. Alright, cool. Oh, thank you for the 10 gift subs again, Lucy. Goddamn. And the 5 gift subs.
Lego
Coach.
Star
Thank you
Wars:
for that.
The Complete Saga. It's a
Tier
game
1
that
Dent,
millions
Prime Thunder,
played
Mesa
upon
Jarhead,
original
Key,
release, and
Dreadnought,
15
Vulcan.
years later, nostalgia is driving another wave of popularity. As more people play Lego Star Wars, a question emerges.
Why
How
do we
quickly
play it?
can the game be beaten? The Lego Star Wars speedrun has the precision of a 3D platformer combined with the glitches and tricks of a broken NES game.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And for the past few years, a dedicated community of runners have been battling each other to take the world record lower. This is the history of Lego Star Wars World Records.
I think what makes speedrunning so special is the glitches and pushing a game to its absolute limits. Like, I don't dislike games where there's not many glitches, but I just always prefer ones that have such incredible tech to it. Just introduces a whole new layer of a skill ceiling.
And now, a word from this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends.
Nice.
For years, a player named CabbageShirt300 was in search of the world's best mobile game. But then, a familiar game called Raid Shadow Legends introduced something new. In December 2022, Raid added MMA fighter Ronda Rousey as a playable character. She comes equipped with some of the most powerful skills in the game.
That's a name I haven't heard
and
in
is perfect
years.
for both PvP battles and taking on tough bosses. By logging in and playing Raid for 7 days before February 20th, you automatically unlock Ronda. It seemed like Cabbage Shirt had found his perfect game.
Interesting.
But then, something amazing happened. Raid recently introduced a special promo code RAID Ronda, where you'll obtain 3-day 100% XP boost, 500k silver.
I hope they do that for
5
more
full
celebrities.
energy
That'd
refills.
be really silly.
Just enter the promo code RAID Ronda in game. Also, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can get exclusive rewards in
Thanks to
Raid
Tier
right
1.
now.
Hoof.
Download Raid now by scanning this QR code or clicking the link in the description.
Isn't she in the WWE?
Not only
I
will
don't
you
know.
be getting unique bonuses valued at $30, but you'll also be helping me out quite a bit. Scan the QR code now and start playing today.
Thanks to resub Bob Dole.
First, let's clear up any confusion with the timeline of the series. Lego Star Wars the video game was released in 2005, where you could play episodes 1 through 3. This was followed up by the original trilogy in 2006,
Kirby.
with episodes 4 through 6 being playable. Finally, in 2007, these games were combined into Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga, allowing you to play through all 6 episodes. While the 3 versions are all speedran today, the most popular one by far is The Complete Saga, the topic of this video. Now, the earliest full game speedruns of The Complete Saga date back to 2013, but it's a bit of a hazy timeline. See, back then there was no concrete rule set. The initial method was to play through episodes 1 through 6 in order on the game's Super Story mode, which adds a timer to the bottom of the screen and doesn't have status screens between levels. Later, runners switched to playing the episodes on Replay Story, meaning you can use any red brick upgrade on any level. Since these records didn't have a standard rule set, and also some were filmed with a potato, we'll skip going over them in detail. However, serious props should be given to the record holders. Poshakt and Lexos,
Hey,
the
congrats, guys.
champions of the Complete Saga's early era. For the next 2 years, no records would be set. But in 2015, the community began to form once again. And for the first time,
All because of a meme.
standardized rules were created. All runs would be played on New Game instead of Replay Story.
Exit Prime Savior.
All red bricks, which are unlockables that give you a special ability, were banned. And you could only play with one player. Calling in player 2 at any point was disallowed.
Oh, that's interesting.
These rules formed the
I know
backbone
the
of
Lego
runs
Lord of the
starting in
Rings one uses
2015.
2-player mechanics.
And the first record to abide by them was played by Moistcr1tikal, clocking in at 3 hours, 44 minutes, and 46 seconds.
Thanks for your sub overs.
Now, this might seem long for a speedrun, but LEGO Star Wars is a long game. It has 36 levels, most of which take several minutes to get through. On top of that, there are also nearly an hour of unskippable cutscenes between the
Oof.
levels. So, how did
Yikes.
Moistcr1tikal speed the game
What
up?
the fuck? Ew.
Well, his general strategy can be seen in Negotiations, the first level in Episode 1. He
36
killed enemies
30
and built objects.
Jesus. 36 isn't that much. My guy, do you know what a level is? Put it in perspective. Halo, the Halo campaigns, the longest one has 13 levels. I think, right? Isn't it 13? I think it is. And it's Halo 2. No. How many does Halo 2 have? 12. Halo 2 has 12. No. Fuck. God damn it, now I'm so spotty on it. Regardless, it's like in the 10 to 15 ballpark. Like, that's standard. I feel like 11. No. It's more than 11. I know that. I just can't remember exactly how many. Point is, most AAA games have less than 36 levels, like significantly less. Thanks for your sub flick. And the resub hot thought. 36 is a lot. That's a big chunk.
Needed to progress, but beyond that, he was running through everything as fast as he could. Oftentimes, there was no need to actually kill enemies.
It's
could just
15, I'm on the
perform
MCC
tasks
right
and
now. I
ignore
got 15
them,
then.
And if you die, you quickly respawn and can keep
SFN.
going. In level 2 of episode 1, Moistcr1tikal showed off quick platforming, jumping through the stage while avoiding slowdowns. Another simple strategy used was on bosses. On fights like Darth Maul and Jango Fett, Moistcr1tikal used the Jedi Slash over and over, the most effective way to drain the health of bosses. So thus far, it seems
Like
that
resub dags.
Moistcr1tikal was still following all the rules of the game.
Those levels
He
are
was
much
just
longer
doing
than
the
7
minimum
minutes.
possible and optimizing everything
I
for
guess, yeah,
speed.
but it doesn't matter. I'm just saying
But
by
no,
pure quantity,
There's
36
more
is a lot of levels.
Moistcr1tikal did we've yet to discuss. Because like I said earlier, LEGO Star Wars is a broken video game.
Okay, nice.
In level 5 of episode 2, you normally have to use one bomb to take out one side of the barrier, then go back and get a second bomb to take out the other side. However, the collision of the barrier stops extending out to the right once the right side is destroyed. So, by doing a precise spin move, you can make it around the barrier without having to backtrack for the second
That's
bomb.
cute, so it's
It's known
simple
as the
time
2-5
saves, nothing too big
first
right now.
barrier skip,
Okay.
and saves roughly 14 seconds. In level 2 of episode 4, you normally have to build and push a block to progress through the stage. But if you instead veer off to the left and double jump off of a slope in the wall, you can make it to a platform and skip right through it. Once again, this saves roughly 14 seconds. And in episode 5, one of the biggest skips in Moistcr1tikal's run takes place. To end level 2, you have to get on top of the Millennium Falcon, and the intended method to do this involves unlocking a door to release animals and jumping off of their backs. Instead, Moistcr1tikal precisely spaced a double jump to barely reach the top early.
That seems
saving
pretty easy to
40
find.
seconds.
Nice.
In all, there were more than a dozen
I still really want to push a game to its limits that no one else has done. I'm still heartbroken that for Amok Runner, my skip didn't work because the fucking game's programming didn't actually load in the final cutscene. Like, I found a way to skip from the beginning of Amok Runner to the very last second of the game, right off rip, but the game is so shit, it didn't load in the final cutscene, so the trigger doesn't work. I'm still devastated. And no one else besides me gives a shit about that game, so there's no one trying to figure out how to make it work. So it's just gonna be dead. My skip will never be fully realized. But I fucking love finding little skips and shit in speedruns. It's so rewarding. Thanks to Tier 1 Snake Spear in the resub Bad Encounter, Josh, Estiva, and the Prime Legend and Chosen.
And tricks like this across the run, adding up to minutes of time save. There's honestly too many of them to go over in depth here, but many of them followed the same pattern, doing a precise jump somewhere you're not supposed to in order to skip doing something else that would take longer. We'll see more of these tricks later. But as a whole, SM1tikal's run was on another level compared to the runs from 2013.
Hey, congrats Y2K.
Fewer mistakes, more tricks, and a cleaner speedrun overall. It was a great starting point, and it stood as the record for almost a year. But in mid-2016, along came a player known as TSG. And what TSG did
that guy
to the
sounds
world
like a
record
gamer.
was this.
Thanks to Resub Gullible.
In 2016, a runner named TSG came onto the scene. By June, he'd have the world record, and over the next year, he'd do that 9 more times. His dominance can be attributed to a few things. First, his skill level was well beyond that of any other runner. The only one who was close was SM1tikal, but he couldn't catch up. Second, this was an incredibly active period of discovery for the game. You'll see soon how many new tricks TSG was able to use. And third, TSG played the game on PC. This wasn't fully known at the time,
The PC
but
Master
running the
Race.
game on PC is much faster than any other version, mainly from having faster load times.
Yeah, I feel like that should have been common
TSG's
sense.
first record was a 341.17, and after the first level, he was presented with the option to
There's a
save or
big
not.
Tier 2 hoof.
After you
Thank
save
hoof.
for the first time, you lose a couple seconds from auto-saving after every level. However, it does allow you to reset the game before a cutscene plays at the end of each episode, since your progress is saved before then. This allows you to more quickly start the next episode instead of watching a long
Okay.
cutscene, especially after episodes 3 and 5. And the time save is further compounded from the fast resetting that you can do on PC. And of course, he had a plethora of new strategies to use, particularly in episode 5.
Thanks to
One
Resub
was in stage
Lily,
5-2.
Newbie,
C-3PO
and Mobile,
can't
and
jump,
the Prime Cell
so you
Sword.
normally have to build a cart to take him up this ledge. But instead, TSG just punched him and pushed him up, saving roughly 22 seconds from not having to use the cart.
That's a fucking cool strat.
And in
Alright,
5-4,
I like that.
you normally have to have Yoda teach Luke the Force and build bridges for R2 to use. But why do that when you can just use bad collision detection in the wall and get up anyway? This was discovered by Grubo, and saves a solid 30 seconds. But the most notable trick in the run was one known as DV3, short for Darth Vader 3. In this form of the fight, you're supposed to deflect objects into Darth Vader, then eventually glass comes down and you can jump across. However, it's just barely possible to jump across without the
frame
glass,
perfect.
meaning you can skip the entire fight. You have 3 frames of leeway between the 2 jumps in the double jump, and it was easily the most difficult trick in the run. But if done properly, you would save over 70 seconds from not having to fight Darth Vader. And thanks to these 3 tricks and more, despite having some big slowdowns, TSG had his first world record.
Thanks to Resub Samiris, Pixel.
His record streak would
Idle Lane and
continue
Split.
over the following weeks, and the run had a couple major changes. First, he changed the episode order, playing episode 5 last. Players were allowed to play them in any order they wanted, but putting episode 5 at the end was beneficial since its ending cutscene was the longest, and timing stops before the cutscene plays. This way, it's not included anywhere in the final time. And the second change was the removal of a leaderboard rule. Red bricks were no longer banned. That meant he could use certain unlockables as he found them throughout the game. The two big ones he used were exploding blaster bolts, which lets you kill some enemies quicker and blow up certain barriers, and infinite torpedoes, which means you always have them behind you in the flying levels and don't have to go pick them up. Having these two upgrades across much of the run saved several minutes, and when combined with better
I figured that would be
execution of other
bigger
tricks,
time saves.
allowed TSG to take the record under 3 hours and 30 minutes. New strategies were also getting discovered left and right, and in late 2016, one of the most obvious oversights from the developers was found by a player named Osamnal. On the last level of episode 1, you're supposed to fight Darth Maul by forcing objects into him. But over on the right, there's a lamp, and for some reason, everything below the lamp is considered by the game to be out of bounds. You can stand and jump in any out of bounds area,
As you said, Professor.
so it's possible to just jump off the wall to the top of the lamp and across to the other side. As simple as
Nice.
that, you could save 30 seconds. By April 2017, TSG had taken the record to 3 hours and 24 minutes, and with
Man's just
second
playing by
place
himself
more
out
than
here.
7 minutes behind, he was in full control of the world record. However, in May, a key rule was lifted. Back in August 2016, the ban on red bricks was lifted, and now
That was a big
players
day
were
for all of
allowed
us.
to call in the second player.
Oh, let's
Welcome
go!
to the world of one player, two controller strats.
So this is where it was really cool in LEGO Lord of the Rings with what you could do with the two-player strats.
So what's the benefit of using a second player? Well, LEGO Star Wars was designed to be a two-player game, and some sections can be completed much faster with the second player. In 4-5, for instance, if you have one player, you're supposed to build a cart to go over buttons fast enough before they turn red. But if you're using two players, no need for the cart. There's a couple sets of these buttons in 4-5, and if you skip using the cart for both, you save a full minute. However, you're not allowed to have a physical second player to help you out. You have to do everything
Thanks to the
alone.
resub cannoli.
So, whenever you want to call in player 2, you have to control them both at the same time. It's known as one player 2 controllers, or 1P2C. And on PC,
I like that, that's cool.
there's 3 options.
Makes
for
it sound
this.
really intense.
You can use 2 controllers, you can use 2 parts of the keyboard, or you can use a keyboard and a controller. Most runners nowadays go with the keyboard controller method, but in June 2017, TSG set a record with the controller method. The only point TSG used 1P2C in the run was in 4-5, but the community knew there could be applications elsewhere. Less than a month after TSG's run, it would be beaten by a new player, Rauschmore. He had been a
a new
contender
face.
for a
Welcome,
while,
welcome,
but
welcome.
rapidly improved his personal best in mid-2017 to take the top spot. He too used 1P2C in stage 4-5, and thanks to a couple new strategies in episode 6, pulled ahead for a new world record by 90 seconds. However, TSG was up to the task, and just a week later he took the record back. By the end of the year, TSG's time was down to 3 hours, 19 minutes, and 30 seconds.
How many players can you
The
have? Just two.
319 run had a
two-player
notable
game.
new trick in the first phase of the
Here,
Darth.
to show you what I keep referencing this, so I might as well show you what I mean. In LEGO Lord of the Rings, it has an actual pretty cool speedrun I was considering doing that uses this same method. I don't remember what the world record time is, though. Or, oh, it's Hobbit. Sorry. LEGO the Hobbit, not LEGO Lord of the Rings. So what you can do with the two-player method here is you can blast yourself out of bounds. Where is it? Somewhere over here. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Here it is. And then you can eventually get like a huge launch, and then you just go through the entire game just outside of the map. It's a long, long trek. But you complete the game after that, and it's really cool. I still might speedrun this. I think I probably will. It's a short one. It's only 10 minutes. Like, I might as well at least get on the leaderboard. Thanks the resub e-girl. Maybe that'll be the next one I speedrun. Turning the game into open world. Yeah, it's cool. You just go right to the end, you hit another one of these clips, and then you're through. That's the route. Why do you like this and not Elden Rings? I love the Elden Ring speedrun. What are you talking about? I didn't like Elden Ring zip speedruns. Nobody did. Like, I don't think there's anything super cool. It's cool, but I don't think it's super fun with the zips. Like, I'm just not a huge fan of the zips. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, it's this. But prior to the zips being the common run, I loved it. I speedran the fuck out of this for like 2 weeks. Motherfucker using a metronome? Well, you have to. It's extremely precise, so you gotta use the metronome. Thanks a resub. None. Isn't zips only allowed in one category? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's the unrestricted category. It's right there.
Vader fight. After dealing 2 hearts of damage, Darth Vader...
How does that work? I don't remember the technical explanation, but what's really cool about zips, and I think it's fascinating, is it's something people found by complete accident because it's a problem with the game itself. If you have your shield up and you just happen to slightly move forward on the perfect frame, you just get launched. It's just something that's in the game.
Jumps around and won't knock Luke's stormtrooper helmet off. You
Prime
can then
Wookiee.
use R2 to precisely land on the white part of the panel, then fly and avoid a death plane to barely make it to the other side. Once there, you activate a platform for Luke and open the door with the stormtrooper helmet to skip nearly the entire fight. The trick, nicknamed DV1, saves 45 seconds and was discovered by a runner named Zolis. When combined with DV3, it was quite evident that stage 5-5 was becoming the most critical point of the run. Speaking of Zolis, he would set the game's next record, a 3:16:12. He implemented 1P2C across the run more.
Okay, this is on my brain, so I want to vocalize it. This is just getting all the neurons firing, and I can't let go of my AMOC runner thing. I think what might be fun, I'm not sure I'll pull the trigger on it, but I at least want to put the idea out there. I think what would be really a fun thing to do, since we haven't done a bounty in a while, is just choose a dog shit game like that, and then put a bounty on it, like, whoever has the fastest speedrun time in this game after a month gets 10 grand. And hopefully that would incentivize people to run it and find incredible routes, and maybe end up with a really fun speed game, and just keep changing the target for that every every month. I think that might be a fun idea. Don't know if I'll fully commit to that, but I at least want to put the idea out there as something that I think could be an interesting idea. Just keep trying to find great speed games, cool tech, and just making a fun event out of it.
More small time saves, like deflecting shots so that R4 could safely activate the panel in 2-2, and others were more substantial.
Yeah, Jervalen did
In
the Halo 2 lasso
4-5,
bounty.
You could
It
now
was
use
unbelievably
Chewbacca to activate the elevator and ride it immediately, instead of having to use Han Solo and wait for its second cycle. A time save of about 12 seconds. But interestingly, Zolis played the game
I'm gonna write
on
that fucking
Wii.
idea down before I forget it. I think that'll be fun. Okay.
We know from before that this is slower than the PC version, but there's another consideration to be made. The Wii version requires using both the Wii Remote and the nunchuck, so to do 1P2C, you need to juggle 4 controllers at
Yikes.
once.
Sounds awful.
Still, Zolas was able to pull it off, with a world record by over 3 minutes. TSG
played on
followed
Ultra
this up
Nightmare
a
mode.
few months later with a 3:14:28. It was notable for implementing yet another trick into level 5-5. DV1 and DV3 already had skips, and now, Darth Vader's 4th form did as well. It was possible to do a couple of precise double jumps, and skip having to use the Force and having to use R2. They have the potential to save about 7 seconds, and just added to the skill needed in 5-5. Episode 5 as a whole was becoming really brutal, and since it has the longest end cutscene, it had to be at the very end of the run. So let's take a look at our timeline so far. TSG started dominating in mid-2016.
Just haven't seen Whale yet,
and
man.
although he
I just haven't had
twice
the
lost the
chance. I
record
need to see
to
it, though.
Rauschmore and Zolas, he'd always been able to fight back. 2 years later, his name was still on top of the leaderboard. But TSG's 3:14 from June 2018 would be the last record he would ever set. The game was about to enter a new era, because in October 2018, Rauschmore did this.
Oof. Jesus, Rauschmore. Have mercy.
Over the span of just 3 weeks, Rauschmore took the record from a 3:14 down to a 3:09. The key was the rapid discovery of new tricks by a runner named L-Tree. Tricks that would save up to 8 minutes.
Oof.
And the first
Is it
one
movement tech?
is really stupid. In 6-5, killing the Emperor normally takes a substantial amount of time. However, if you lure him over to the corner and die intentionally, upon respawning, you can just push him off the edge.
That's hype.
It skips the remainder of
Wait,
the
that's
fight
so
and
cool.
saves 45 seconds.
Good discovery.
Later, it was
L-Tree,
discovered
more like
you could push him
W-Tree,
off
that's
at the
hype.
start of the fight by calling in player 2. It saves an additional minute and is known as the Ultra Kill. Another simple boss skip was found in 4-3. You can skip the spy fight by using the Force on R2.
Resub Leon and
This
Mango.
pushes him past the trigger to start the fight, and if you call him in after, you can just go in the open door and save about 50 seconds. But the real big time save was in 6-3. In this level, you're supposed to hop in your speeder and drive through the roughly 5-minute course. Instead, if you go into the corner of the end barrier with both players, player 1 gets placed above player 2, and you can do a 360 to make it over the barrier. This activates the end of the course, and you can skip the entire thing to save several minutes.
That's so good.
These discoveries helped lead to 4 consecutive records from Rauschmore.
What I love, so I have a love-hate with really long routes for speedrun, but what I find most impressive is the memorization of every trick, because that's a lot that you have to keep track of. The longest speedrun I've ever done is Psychonauts, and that's about an hour. I think the world record's like sub 50 now, but when I was running it, the record was about an hour, and I was pretty active with it. And trying to keep track of the tricks, when to use them, how to do them, where to do them, and being super precise and even frame perfect at times is unreal. Especially after like 20, 30 minutes worth of already going through a run. The stakes are just so goddamn high. What is the Psychonauts world record much lower than an hour now? Why did I get hit with question marks? Oh my, wait, what? 30 minutes. Holy shit. Well. Okay. That'll do it. Thanks to Tier 1 Cappy and the resub MCR and the Prime Callum. What new stuff did they discover? Glad to see it's still active. It's a great speedrun. If you guys haven't seen the Psychonauts speedrun, highly recommend it. It has some really cool glitches, and there's really great movement tech as well.
Unless you'd rather just drop and give me 20 right now!
I'll just watch that on my own later and catch up with it. Maybe I'll
His
start
fourth
running that
and
again.
final time, a 3:09 from October 2018, would be the final record set in the year.
Always been 30, you just misremembered?
interest-
No. This was set in 2020. I stopped running it when I switched to Twitch, which would have been 2018, late 2017. I haven't run this game since coming to Twitch. And I definitely recall it was like probably 40 something minutes, because I used to be in the Discord for a while. My personal best was like 57.
Interestingly, as the record stayed put at 3:09, the run started to get massive views on YouTube. It went semi-viral, and many people who saw the
Prime
video
Elijah.
thought it could be fun to try running it themselves. And largely thanks to Rauschmore's video, by early 2019, there was a new crop of runners ready to gun for the world record.
Oh, good spread.
In 5th place, there was Senor with a 3:11:37. In 4th place, there was Wii Super with a 3:10:45. In 3rd place, there was Osamnol with a 3:10:06. And in 2nd place, there was Shred with a 3:09:54. All 4 runners were closing in on Rauschmore's
resub
record,
Papa
and it was
Dappa in
obvious that
gold.
one of them would beat it soon. The general consensus for the favorite to do so was Osamnol, but all 4 of them had a shot at it. And then, one of them broke through. On February 11th, 2019, Senor jumped straight from 5th to 1st place to capture his first world record. He lowered
Congrats,
his personal
Senor.
best by nearly 2.5 minutes in the process. Senor had gotten into the game after seeing Rauschmore's video, and although he lowered his time quickly, he was comfortably behind the other record contenders. But the key to Senor getting this record was 1P2C. He used it all over the run. He used it for multitasking, he used it to get one player in position while the other player built, he used it to push characters further ahead. These were small time saves on their own, but they added up when used across the 3-hour run. This was also the first run to use the incredibly difficult disco skip in 6-2. After building the speaker, you then try and position Luke so he's exactly 50% inside of the speaker once it's finished being built. The game doesn't know what to do when you're inside a built object, so if you're next to a wall, it will sometimes push you
huge
through
clip.
it, meaning you can go out of bounds and skip building the disco party to save 40 seconds. This is a really precise trick, since you have to be positioned just right to clip out of bounds, but if you miss it, you can just break the speaker and build it to try again. With all the competition from top runners, people didn't expect Senor's record to last long. But
And
it
it
would only
didn't.
last for 3 days. On Valentine's Day 2019, Shred
resub
took the
recake.
record with a 3:06:27. Shred had been running the game for over a year, but only became a serious record contender early in 2019. And his record was an improvement by nearly 3 minutes, which was especially impressive given that it was played on a Wii. It didn't do much new over Senor's record, but was better executed. It had a first try ultra kill and a cleaner episode 6 overall. Senor fired back just 3 days later with another 2-minute record improvement.
Thanks to Prime Yuka.
The world record was now down to a 3:04.
Sub 3
It
looking
still had some
possible.
significant slowdowns. Senor lost nearly a minute on disco skip, and over 30 seconds in 5-5 from missing the DV skips. So clean up those tricks, save
These
a
are
bit
5 gift
elsewhere,
subs.
and add in a couple new strategies.
Illiterate?
And suddenly, sub 3 didn't seem out of the question. In March 2019,
Senor in
2
chat, let's
runners
go.
started to pull ahead from the rest of the pack. Senor and Wii
Thanks for
Super.
sub Zom.
Both of these guys had only gotten into the game in the last few months, but they lowered their time side.
Holy shit.
Wii Super
Thank you
started
for
a run of his
25
own,
gift subs, Eldon.
and this run would
Jesus
finish
Christ,
as a
thank you, Eldon.
2:59:04. the world's second sub-3.
Oof.
Had Wii Super started his run just a few hours earlier,
Rough
he
Wii Super.
would have won the race to sub-3. But instead, he had to settle for second place, while Senor got the glory. But Senor's record wouldn't last long. He beat his own run by 43 seconds just a day later. This run was notable for introducing a piece of RNG. In 4-4, there's a section where Obi-Wan is supposed to appear across the room on a bridge after you arrive. The way the game tries to get him there is by running through a room with barrels. If he gets stuck behind a barrel, the game turns him to try and get around them, which slows him down, but he still eventually arrives on the bridge. Usually. Sometimes he gets stuck. And if that happens, he never shows up, and you can't progress through the level. LEGO Star Wars is a broken game. Now, runners used to have a way around this. You reload the bridge room by entering and exiting the previous room, which guarantees Obi-Wan will show up for a 2-second time loss. But players then found 4-4 cutscene skip. By jumping off of this ledge, you can hook back and enter an out-of-bounds area to skip to the next room.
I like that.
This means a cutscene doesn't play and you save 18 seconds. However,
I really feel like getting out of bounds in a game like LEGO, you can do a lot more than just go from room to room. But of course, I'm not in the community. I haven't run this game in particular myself. I just feel, well, we're also super early, so maybe they do. I feel like there's just so much room for out of bounds, especially in a game as linear as LEGO. If you can just get out like they found here, I feel like you could really push the shit out of it.
As a consequence of the cutscene not playing, you can no longer reload the bridge room,
Thanks to Prime Divine.
since you wouldn't be able to leave the previous room if you enter it. So, Obi-Wan RNG was back into play.
Thanks again, Eldon.
He didn't want to show up, you were in big trouble. A couple weeks later, a fairly substantial change was made. The community decided to alter the way runs were timed. Instead of starting when the players gained control in 1-1, it would now begin when selecting New Game on the main menu. This was mostly done so that movement in the cantina would be considered in the final time. It added roughly 58 seconds to all runs.
Aww.
So, when Senor set a record that would have been 2:57.36 under the old timing, it was retimed to 2:58.34. And that made it 4 consecutive records for Senor. He was the first to sub-3, and now he was taking control of the leaderboard. And for Wii Super, he just couldn't catch up. He perpetually remained slightly behind Senor, easily in second
Bronze
place,
kneecap.
but ever since he missed his chance at the first sub-3, the world record eluded him.
Thanks to the resub.
But after the 2:58.34, Senor announced that he would be taking a break from the category to focus his efforts elsewhere. Maybe this was the chance Wii Super needed. With Senor at least temporarily out of the picture, he could hone in on improving his time without needing to compete with anyone. And as it turns out, just 2 days later, it was only record by a second, but Wii Super had finally overtaken Senor. It was a run with a great early game, but he lost some time on speeder skip and had a weak episode 4. Still, Wii Super had broken through. Was this a one-time deal, or was he about to make something more out of it?
Senor comes back from that break.
A 60-second record improvement by Wii Super, largely due to saving time in episode 4. The very next day, another 1.5-minute world record.
Wow, he really
3
unlocked the
weeks later,
Sharingan.
2 record improvements on the same day. 3 days later, a record cut by nearly 2 full minutes. Then Wii Super took a break. And when he came back, another world record.
My god.
7 records over the course of 3 months.
He got
for Wii
unleashed.
Super. The final one was a time of 2:53.04.
The resub Sapphire.
After a while, Senor had come back to attempts, but this time the tables were turned. He was the one who couldn't catch up to Wii Super. The way he went on this run was through both improving his own skills and utilizing new strategies. In 2-6, Wii Super began using Dooku Skip. By standing on a barrel, you can force it with player 2 and clip under the floor. By then dropping out with the inbounds player, you can lead them forward past the trigger for the Dooku fight and enter the next room. The trick was found by Senor and saves up to 30 seconds. Wii Super also began using the Vehicle Smart Bomb Red Brick. It allows you to hold the special button in ship levels and make everything on screen explode, which can save you about 20 seconds in 5-1. And interestingly, with these new tricks being incorporated and runners' skill levels improving, someone new moved into second place, Chimkin. He had been in third place for months, even being a part of the initial sub-3 grind, but he always remained behind Wii Super and Senor. But he was improving, and by May, he was ahead of Senor. And sure enough, when Wii Super woke up on the morning of July 6th, his record was gone. Chimkin had beaten it by over a minute, getting a 252 flat.
Sub 250 looking good.
It was a run with a slow early game, but after a gold split in 3-2, he was off to the races. He pulled ahead of the record and crushed it. So, Wii Super had to get back to work. And it took him 13 hours to get the record back.
Oh, nice.
Over the coming weeks and months, Wii Super and Chimkin would trade the record back and forth. Wii Super was the first to take an under 250, with a 249.55 on July 17th. Chimkin would get the next record, and by the end of the year, it was down to 245.39. How did these two take the record down by 7 minutes? Well, there was a new red brick, Fast Force, which does what it sounds like. It lets you force objects faster. To obtain it quicker, Chimkin found a method of going out of bounds, then doing a death warp to get back on track.
Oh, now it's getting really intense with the
4-2.
glitches. Nice.
So players started playing episode 4 earlier in the run so they could use Fast Force in episode 6, 3, and 5. And of course,
the glitches
there
are getting more
were a plethora
intricate
of
and
new
precise.
strategies discovered in the second half of 2019. Some were small and saved a few seconds, while others saved closer to half a minute. But the big one was in 5-6. It's the last stage in the game, and it had an evolution of skips over the years. Way back during TSG's record reign, runners started doing a trick called Bespin out of bounds. You'd jump roll off a ledge to land out of bounds, and progress forward in the stage to skip having to build C-3PO and open a door.
That's
it
huge.
saved 45 seconds, but was immensely difficult. Players used this trick for years, but in December 2019, Senor found something better. You join with player 2 and put Lando in a doorway. If player 1 stands far enough away and Lando jumps, the door will close. If it closes while you're at the top of your jump, you'll get pushed through the door frame and out of bounds. Ultimately, you can get to the same room as you did from Bespin out of bounds, but it allows you to do so nearly a full minute faster, and is much easier. The only problem is that if you miss the door clip initially, AI characters can randomly run near the door and prevent it from closing.
Oh, those bastards.
You really want to get the trick first try.
You dirty bitch.
With all these time saves combined,
I'd be so mad if I was running that and the AI came back and fucked me.
On top of that, the world record was down to a really solid 245. It was enough for Wii Super to take a break from grinding the category, and Chimkin had stopped playing it as well. Other than those two, nobody had a PB under 2 hours and 50 minutes. But over the coming weeks in late 2019 and early 2020, the game would get a huge boost in popularity, thanks to an unlikely source: TikTok.
Oh.
There was a big wave of nostalgia for LEGO Star Wars. Millions played it while growing up, and after years had passed, they looked back on the game fondly. A trend began on TikTok where people changed their profile pics to mimic how they look in LEGO Star Wars, with a green or blue circle around them. This increased the game's popularity on the internet as a whole, as people remembered LEGO Star Wars and wanted to experience it again. As such, speedrun streams and videos exploded in popularity, and starting in early 2020, there was a new wave of speedrun activity. And suddenly, by February, Wii Super had new competitors on his doorstep.
Oh,
in second place
fresh
was
faces.
Fresh,
Oh, well,
and
fresh,
in third
nice.
place was Led Astray. Both had a time of 2:47, and both had aspirations for the world record. Wii Super had no choice but to do more runs if he wanted to defend his title. So he did. And in the span of just 1 week, he lowered the record twice, taking it down to 2:44.30. But this wasn't the complete domination that he'd had earlier. His competition continued to close in. Led Astray got a 2:46, and a familiar face had actually jumped into second place. Senor.
Hey.
Pressure was on for Wii Super. These guys were both capable of getting the record, and could really obtain it any day now. Wii Super continued to do runs. And a couple weeks later, he achieved a run that put away any competition for the record.
A sub 2 hour run somehow.
Months of attempts had all
Fucking
led
cheated,
up to
no
this
clipped.
moment. It was his ultimate run. Throughout the first 4 episodes, there were no significant mistakes. He gained a bit of time on nearly every level, and leaving episode 6, he was nearly 2 minutes ahead.
Exit Tier 1 Megamon.
The final
Prime
2 episodes are
Fibbles,
3 and
Sub
5,
Kato, and Gift Sub
and although
Zerby.
they weren't perfect, they were good enough. And when combined with the incredible start he'd had, the end result was a monster world record.
Okay, that's
Wii
not
Super
bad.
wasn't that much risk of losing his title anymore. Or was he? Senor wasn't deterred from the task at hand. Wii Super was now 3 minutes
probably
ahead,
found an even better
but
skip or
Senor
something
knew
somewhere.
he could close the gap. On March 27th, he took his PB down to
Agree,
2:44, and on the 31st, he shaved
bits
another
moisty.
half minute off. Despite the optimization of Wii Super's record, Senor was actually able to close in. These two guys were ahead of the pack. Just like the initial sub 3 grind, Wii Super and Senor were locked in a battle. Thanks to the game's boost in popularity around this time, the community decided to have a LEGO Star Wars speedrun tournament.
That's
Wii
cute.
Super, Senor, and most of the game's other top runners all participated. It was a double elimination tournament, and there were some great times put up by several different runners. But when all was said and done, after the brackets were completed, who else would meet in the finals but Wii Super and Senor? These
Yeah, that
two
sounds
would
about
get
right.
the benefit of a big new
Man,
strategy.
I certainly hope this didn't all happen in the same day. Each of these runs is like 2 hours, 40 minutes at best, like your best run. And fuck, how many rounds? Like this is like a 10-hour tournament at least. Hopefully this was spread out over the course of a weekend.
But Wii Super and Senor. These two would get the benefit of a big new strategy discovered a few weeks ago in 6-1, Spiderless. By using a forcible object, you could clip into the wall,
Thanks to the bits.
which was faster than the old method
Fade.
of using the spider.
Hey, welcome.
You can then come back in bounds to touch a grate, which acts as a trigger for the game to send you straight to the boss fight and skip the cutscene.
It was months? Oh, okay.
This trick saved a full
Jesus.
60 seconds, a huge advantage for any runner who could pull it off. Up to this point, Senor had lost one match while Wii Super was undefeated. So to win the whole thing, Senor needed to win twice, while Wii Super needed just one win. And Senor handily won the first game. Wii Super accidentally soft-locked in 5-1,
Oh, you
losing
fool!
several minutes and allowing Senor to cruise to an easy victory. That meant there would be a winner-take-all match the next day to determine the tournament champion. This was going to be a tough task for Senor. Think of all he had going against him. His personal best was nearly a minute behind Wii Super. He had lost to him earlier in the tournament, and he had gotten a pretty lucky victory yesterday thanks to a fluke softlock. He was going to need to play out of his mind if he wanted to win this thing. And so, on April 19th, 2020, in the final match of the tournament,
There's
with
Brian
his
3J.
opponent heavily favored to win.
In
This
tournament
was Senor's
too.
first world record
Huge.
in over a year, back when the run was 16 minutes slower. And it was actually a close race through much of the run, but Senor eventually pulled ahead. And although Wii Super finished with a 2:42, he didn't stand a chance. Senor won the match, he won the tournament, and he got the world record.
Was there
And
a prize
race
for the
to
tournament?
Sub 240 was officially
so.
on. Once again, Senor and Wii Super were the two
Loser
competitors.
said Mothman.
As it turns out, Senor's time at the top wouldn't last
5
long.
candies.
Wii
Cool.
Super wanted the record back, and it took him just 5
Pack of
days
cigarettes.
to do so. He got a 2:40.32. This run was actually on sub 240 pace until 5-5, but the last two stages of the run are two of the toughest. Wii Super lost a lot of time to DV3 in 5-5, and to Door Clip in 5-6. Sub 240 would have to wait.
Imagine not doing DV3 second try. Ugh. Couldn't be me. Damn, that... Jesus, that door is really... I feel like I could, like, see Wii Super's anger with killing the
Wii Super
NPCs
lost
there.
45 seconds to Door Clip, and missed sub 240 by just 4 seconds.
That's so sad.
It's a great example of how tough the end of the run is. Door Clip is in the very last stage, and if you miss it initially, bad luck can make you lose the record. Over the following few weeks, competition caught up. A couple runners named Pickle Toe and Ginger Legend got times in the 241 range,
More new
increasing the
faces.
pressure on Wii Super. And on July 14th, Senor had a run on sub 240 pace into 5-6. But once again, Door Clip killed it. He ended up 1 second behind the world record. Wii Super
Damn, it
had
was a
waited
heartbreaker.
too long. Other players had caught up, and it was a dead heat for the first sub 240. But on July
Thanks, Yusuf
22nd,
Obama.
Wii Super had a run with a fantastic first few episodes. He then lost his helmet in 4-5, but a great episode 6 put him back in the lead. He had a rough 5-5, but with time to save in 5-6, sub 240 was still possible. He got Door Clip quickly and left just enough room to get a sub 240.
Nice.
239.49. Wii Super had won the
We're
race.
coming.
This was Wii Super's 22nd
Thanks,
world
Yusuf
record.
Typical.
He'd faced competition from some of the best in the world, but time and time again, he had proven he could come out on top. With his sub 240 goal accomplished, Wii Super finally felt he could take a break. And the runners in second
shot.
through fourth place,
Not in this game.
Senor, Pickle Toe, and Ginger Legend, had lost motivation after being beaten to the first sub 240. So, they all stopped running the category as well.
Oh, what?
For the first time in many months, there was little activity at the top of the leaderboard. That meant there was technically an opportunity for someone outside of the top 4 to swoop in and make a move.
T-Pain.
Let's take a look at who was in 5th place. This is E-Roadhouse. He had been running the game for about 3 months, and managed to quickly enter the game's top 5. However, during the sub 240 grind, he was comfortably... Well, LEGO Star Wars has an ultra shortcut.
Let's go!
Level 1-4 is the pod
Now we're
race.
fucking cooking.
You have to drive around the course 3 times to beat the stage. For years, there was no way to really speed this up. Even the fastest world records
I
just
love ultra
rode the 3
shortcuts.
laps. But in mid-2020,
For those that are unfamiliar with ultra shortcuts, Summoning Salt also has great content on it here. Most known in like Mario Kart Wii. It's so cool. Ultra shortcuts are so fucking cool. Highly recommend checking any of these out if you're interested in really cool skips.
P53, Havster, and CNOR combined to develop a trick called pod fraud. It's a very complicated trick, but the gist of it is that the game's only method for checking lap completion is seeing if you've touched an area on the far side of the course, and seeing if you've touched the finish line region. So after driving a lap normally, you go out of bounds with 2 players, leave one by the finish line region,
And one by
try
the
to get
check.
the other to the far side.
Yeah, nice. Smart.
This middle section out of bounds kills you, but it lets you build up speed quickly. So, by dying a few times, you can build up enough speed to make it across.
Holy
By
shit.
touching this region, the next lap is activated, and you skip having to drive around. This setup takes about 25 seconds, but a lap normally takes about 60, so you save over half a minute. The other big skip is called Grieve Cheese, discovered by Pickletoe with concepts from Fezteo. The general Grievous fight is normally a slow, scripted battle, where you jump around the level and then attack him on the main platform. However, he'll only perform his scripted actions if you're actively standing on this platform. So, you can use Obi-Wan to lure him toward a rock, then jump off the platform and shoot him with player 2 before he walks too far away. By repeating this over and
interesting.
over,
Smart.
you can drain his health without having him ever perform scripted actions. Unfortunately, there's RNG involved. He can randomly block your shots, which wastes time. But ideally, Grieve Cheese can save over half a minute. With
Thanks,
all
Bits
this and
Moisture.
more, Wii Super
Recent
felt
meme.
that he could crush the current record. And he was right. On September 18th, he beat eRoadhouse by just under 2 minutes, getting a 2:37.49. A few weeks later, he did it again, with a 2:36.08. The leaderboard was back to normal. Wii Super was dominating the competition multiple minutes ahead of anyone else. And still, years after his
Thanks,
first
Yusha
world
Bokami.
record, nobody could catch Wii Super. At least, not for a couple weeks. Just
Oh,
16
eRoadhouse
days
back.
after Wii Super's 2:36, eRoadhouse managed to get the record back. The key to doing this
wasn't a
was yet
fluke.
another complicated new trick: Falconless. The normal way to end stage 4-5 involves activating 4 triggers scattered throughout a big room, then killing all the stormtroopers. It's a slow process that gradually raises the Millennium Falcon, so you can eventually enter it and end the level.
So you go out of bounds, hit the trigger,
However,
I bet.
P53 found a way to end the level early. You first have to load the last room of the level, which can be done by entering this grapple room. You then go back far in the level, and by crossing a particular line, the game tries to save memory by unloading the last room. This means the triggers, stormtroopers, and Millennium Falcon all disappear. The issue is that the game never reloads them once you go back forward. So you re-enter the final room, and
You can just
nothing's
fall
there.
straight down.
Since the stormtroopers are gone, the game treats them the same as if they were killed, so you can jump into where the open door would be, and the level ends. This saves about a minute and 15 seconds, and
Huge.
eRoadhouse's new record was a 2:34.51. That means that even without Falconless, he still would have beaten Wii Super.
I wonder though.
Maybe it was a fluke.
Just based off of what I've seen so far, and maybe they do this, it seems like if you can still just hit that trigger regardless, right? Couldn't you find a clip out of bounds and then just do a death warp and still hit that trigger on the way up? Or am I completely misunderstanding how the tech works? So that way you don't have to run all the way back. Thanks to the gift sub Oyster and the resub Full Toe. No, because it checks enemies. Oh, good point. Good point.
Luke. Whenever someone took the record from Wii Super, he was always quick to respond. But a month later, eRoadhouse set another record, 2:34.32. This was uncharted territory. When was he going to respond? Nobody
So
else
what
had
happens in a
person-
situation like that when you hit that ceiling, like where you completely blast a root's ass wide open and you master it, you have a perfect run, the only way you catch up is if you find new tech. You have to look for new glitches. That's the only way you can make up for the difference in skill. That's the only shot you have.
best below 236, there were no challengers for the record. However, that didn't stop players from continuing to run the game. But the nature of the competition changed. It was now a battle for second place, rather than the world record. About a month after the 231, a new runner moved into second.
Oh, Ginger Legend
Ginger
back.
Legend. A few days later, he'd be beaten by Senor, getting a 235 and then a 234.
Oh, well, hold on a second. They're starting to tickle.
It's important to note that there were very few new strategies being utilized. The vast majority of their time save came from getting better at the game. Fewer mistakes, better movement, that sort of improvement. By February, a runner named Zach achieved a 235, and by March, there was a trio of runners with a 234. Senor in second place, Ginger Legend in third place, and Zach in fourth place. For the first time since he set his mammoth world record, E-Roadhouse was feeling a bit of pressure. They were still minutes away from his record.
Well, yeah, it's not that close, though.
Their times were dropping.
He can still relax.
So, he decided to end his break and go back to record attempts. But he struggled to get good runs going, especially compared to his incredible 231.
God, he fell off.
On March 6th, Senor would once again lower his second place time, 233.05. He was now within 90 seconds of the world record. E-Roadhouse continued his attempts, but failed to get anything good.
Prime small.
And then, on March 9th, Zach got on a run that was even with the world record through episode 2, then actually gained half a minute over the record in episode 4.
Okay, Zach.
Once again, this was mostly due to better gameplay rather than new strategies. He ended up losing time to the incredible episodes 6 and 5 in E-Roadhouse's record, but still finished with
Tragic.
a 232.23. Zach was just 35 seconds off the world record. Senor had a 233, Zach had a 232, and E-Roadhouse had a 231. All three of them were doing attempts, and all three of them had potential to get the world record. E-Roadhouse's time had run out. He was now in direct competition with two strong runners. There
At
was
least he had
no
some
question the world
bit of a
record was
respite.
coming down. The question now was, which of these three was going to do it first? Well, on March 22nd, E-Roadhouse broke through. It was only a 5-second record improvement, but it showed that he still had what it took. This run had another fantastic early game, but he lost about 45 seconds in episode 6 from repeatedly missing Disco Skip. Episodes 3 and 5 were up and down, but since his gameplay overall had improved, it was enough to eke out a small record. But his work wasn't done yet. A couple weeks later, E-Roadhouse got a 231.35. Another small record improvement, but he was making progress while Zach and Senor weren't improving their times. Still, all three runners continued to grind over the following weeks. The end goal had shifted.
Thanks, Resub.
It was officially a grind for the game's first sub 230. A half-hour barrier hadn't been broken.
What date are we
in
at right
2
now? Are we still in
years.
2020 or no? This is
In
2021.
mid-May,
right?
Senor lowered his time down by over half a minute. All three runners were now within 60 seconds of each other. Who would get sub 230 first? Would it be the veteran, the newcomer, or the current world record holder? Well, on
Thanks,
May
Resub.
14th,
Garcia.
E-Roadhouse got on a run with another incredible first couple of episodes. Once again, this was his best pace ever leaving
Or
episode
May
2.
14th, 2021.
He
right
faltered a bit in levels 4-2 and 4-3, so his pace cooled off slightly exiting episode 4. But after episode 6, he was still a minute ahead of the record. It was clear that this would be a golden opportunity for the sub 230. And then, in episode 3-1, something strange happened. Roadhouse was cycling through his splits to see what time saves he had left, and he accidentally paused his timer. He realized this a short while later and unpaused it, but this threw everything off. His pace would now seem better than it really was. He didn't know how long it was paused, so if this run went all the way, he'd have to retime it to see what he really got. Well, Roadhouse made his way through episode 3, and it went beautifully. Episode 5 got off to a great start, and entering 5-5, he was a minute 21 ahead. But of course, his real pace was still a mystery. 5-5 was solid, and 5-6 was nearly perfect. And when he stopped his splits, they read 2:29:35. Roadhouse knew his run was slower than that, but the exact amount wasn't known. It all came down to how long the timer was paused.
It was probably just over 2:30.
It had to be retimed. And the exact length of the pause would determine if this was the world's first sub 2:30 or if the race would continue.
Thanks to resub cheeseburger.
And after the retime, they found that Roadhouse's timer was paused for 21.5 seconds.
Oh, so just under.
Meaning his run was a 2:29:57.
He still did it,
By
baby!
the skin of his teeth, he had done it. His 6th world record in a row was his most important one yet. Roadhouse officially had the world's first sub 2:30. In the aftermath of this run, Zach and Senor continued doing PB attempts for a short while. Both players lowered their times, but neither could catch up to Roadhouse. Their motivation had just dried up. It seemed like another community break would be in order. But you're probably noticing a pattern by now. Whenever community motivation is at a low point, new tricks are always found to bring people back in.
Goddamn right.
Right on cue in May 2021, 2 massive tricks were discovered. One of them was a 30-second time save in 3-5 found by Los. But the one we're gonna go over was the one discovered in 5-5. This trick was notable for 2 main reasons. For one thing, it was in the toughest stage of the run. 5-5 was already a completely broken level. You had DV1, DV3, and the DV4 jumps. The new trick, fittingly, was called DV2.
Oh, I thought it was going to go even higher
Every room of the
somehow.
Darth Vader fight now had a skip. And the other notable thing about this trick, it was the most difficult one in the entire game. That's right, the toughest trick of the run was now in a stage that was already considered to be the hardest. This is the insanity of DV2.
I hope it saves like
You
10
start
minutes.
by activating a moving platform outside the boss room, then positioning Luke on a panel beneath it, and placing R2 on the platform.
Oh, you send it down and you clip
When the
out.
platform moves down, you can collide into Luke as he's sliding
Nice.
off the panel. If done at the perfect moment, Luke will go through the wall under the floor of the next room, and you can just walk underneath the boss fight. Getting the clip into the wall is so precise that pause buffering is used to help line it up. And even so, every single step of this trick is hard. It's hard to get on the panel, it's hard to stay on the panel, it's hard to pause buffer at the right time, it's hard to line up Luke, it's hard to line up R2, it's hard to avoid going too low in the boss room, it's hard to avoid going too high in the boss room. Any of these portions not being done correctly results in
I love
miss.
those precise glitches. That
But
shit's
if
great.
done properly, it would save an additional 50 seconds.
Oh, that'd be a lot
team
more.
of Lava Fang 407, Note KO, and EJP Man created DV2, and it made stage 5-5 a nightmare. Tough trick after tough trick, right at the end of the run. But with all the time save potential, people had to go for it, and it brought runners Zach and Senor back to doing runs. They each got times of 2:30, and then on June 1st, Senor set the world record.
Hey,
It had a
Senor
rough
back on
episode
top, baby.
6, particularly a slow ultra kill in 6-5, but he got DV2
This is
on
his first
second
record
try.
in a while.
A fantastic result for such a tough trick. He closed it out 20 seconds ahead of Roadhouse, Seanor's first world record in over a year, back when the run was 12 minutes slower. So now, of the top 3 competitors, only one had yet to get the world record: Zach. He'd been in the top 3 for the past 5 months, even moving into second place on several occasions, but he had never been able to take the top spot. It was frustrating. He knew he was good enough, he'd been on pace before, and he also had a bit of time on his hands coming up. So,
he sold his crypto company
to start a devoted grind for the record. But this wasn't going to be just any grind. He was going to play the game 14 to 15 hours per day until he set the world record. Zach began on his quest, and over the next 2 weeks, he played the game for roughly 200 hours. Run after run, good pace.
That's like RuneScape hours, my boy.
And despite all that,
that's enough for a single level in runecrafting.
In fact, he didn't even get a PB. Zach remained in 3rd place, behind Roadhouse and Senor. Disappointing for sure, but Zach would still get another chance. Because on June 13th, runners Zach, Roadhouse, and Wii Super all met up to grind for the world record 12 hours a day, with Senor also participating at home. Only 12 hours may have been less than Zach was used to, but still, 4 of the best runners in the world, 12 hours per day, for 3 days straight. Surely a world record was incoming. But it never happened. 72 hours came and went, with no world records. And here's why. Between all 4 runners, more than 20 world record paces were achieved into the final 2 levels. All of them died to DV2.
Oh,
it was such a hard trick.
That's tragic.
And trying to execute it when feeling the pressure of a record-paced run, good luck with that. So for Zach, a grind of 12-hour days hadn't worked. 14-hour days hadn't worked either. Option.
16-hour days.
On June 16th, Zach began a grind of 16-hour days to get the LEGO Star Wars world record.
Goddamn right he did. Time is relative.
And he never had any runs on record pace.
Son of a bitch.
It was starting to seem hopeless. But on June 18th...
I tell you what, though. I can promise you one thing. He may not have got the record during those 16-hour-a-day streams, but he probably fucking farmed some ad revenue off of it on Twitch. Those are going to be pulling in some numbers. Those are some long hours.
Finally got a run deep ahead of the record. And what a pace it was. Entering 5-5, his best possible time was 2:28.43. That was a good enough pace that he didn't even need to do DV2. He could get the record without it. But Zach was committed to going for it. And on just his 3rd try, he got in the wall. If he could just make it to the end of the room, he'd be in the clear. But disaster struck. He went too low and died, forcing him to start DV2 over again. He lost over a minute, and ended up missing the record by just seconds. Had he skipped doing DV2, he would have had the world record. So, Zach kept going. More long
this guy's
sessions,
mental. Fuck
more
me.
failed runs. But on June 24th, he'd find himself in an eerily similar situation. A best possible time of 2:28.08 into 5-5. Once again, he could skip DV2 and still get the record.
No, don't do it. Don't be a bitch.
But once again, he was committed to going for it.
My man.
It was a decision that cost him the record last time. But this time, he hit it first try.
Oh.
He was in a golden position now. He closed out 5-5, got door clip, and when Zach entered the Millennium Falcon to end 5-6, he had just set a new world record.
Let's go.
By over a minute. After months of grinding,
what a crazy
and
grind
hundreds of
from
hours
Zach.
of world
Holy
record
shit.
attempts, Zach's efforts were vindicated. This record didn't stop others from trying. Senor, Wii Super, and Roadhouse all continued doing record attempts after the in-person meetup. But eventually, their attempts stopped, in large part because 5-5 was such a demoralizing stage. So, throughout the rest of 2021, Zach's time remained at the top of the leaderboard. He went from not being able to set the record to holding the top spot for 6 months straight.
Wow.
In early 2022,
that was a good time
Zach
to get the record.
decided to come back to the game. It had taken him hundreds of attempts and many months of grinding to set his world record.
Over Bricko here? This man came out of nowhere. We're not gonna mention Bricko, 3rd place. Damn, and we still have like 20 minutes here. Jesus.
Close. The community was as active as ever, but with no records being set, a big opportunity was going to waste. So, in an attempt to get the game a new world record, the community decided to organize one more big event. It was going to be another 4-day break the record session. But instead of the game's top 4 runners competing, this time they expanded it to the top 10. 10 runners, 4 days, and a goal time of 2:26.
Nice.
Even with this many runners, nobody knew for sure if a new record would be set. But one thing that wasn't in doubt was that there would be a lot of movement on the leaderboards. Zach and Roadhouse were in 1st and 2nd place, and they were the favorites to lower the record. Just behind them were Bacon Soda and Bricko, still with decent odds to get the record. And beyond them was a mix of prior record holders and newer contenders. Their personal bests ranged from Zach's 227 down to a 233. But all of them knew that they had a serious chance to move up on the leaderboard. Let the world record attempts begin. Zach and Roadhouse may have been in the best positions to lower the record, but 4th place runner Bricko got the first good chance.
Oh, here we go.
Just hours into day 1, he had a run with a best possible time of 2:25.46 into episode 3. There was still a ways to go, but it was easily on world record pace. Unfortunately, a poor episode 3 cost him the record.
Son of a bitch.
But he still got a 2:27.47. This was good enough for 2nd place. It was a big motivator for the rest of the group, especially for the recently demoted to 3rd place Roadhouse. And toward the end of day 1, both he and Zach found themselves on record pace into 5-5. But DV2 would strike again. Roadhouse finished with a 2:28.25.
Ooh, yeah, he got mad there.
And Zach got
that a DV2 will get you.
2:27.45. Zach's time was faster than every runner on the leaderboard, except for his own record. Day 1 had come and gone, and despite movement from some top runners, no new records were set. Day 2 featured a couple PBs from runners in the top 10. Wii Super got a 25-second PB cut, and Senor moved from 5th to 4th place. But for most of the day, none of the top runners got anything on world record pace. Then, late in the night, after most runners were done for the day, Zach had a run with 2:27.11 potential into 5-5. But of
not
course,
226, don't
he
care.
still had to get DV2.
That's pussy stuff. We
and
don't
he
deal
actually
with that.
did it first try. This was the best chance of the event. He had one tough trick to go, door clip. And unfortunately, he couldn't get it.
That's unlucky.
He lost over 20 seconds and finished with a 2:27.38. The best time of the event so far, but still no world record.
Ooh, Jesus, thank you for the 20 gift subs, Celindas. Thank you for that. Celindus.
Day 3 featured several more promising runs from Zach.
Appreciate the
He
fat
achieved
drop.
numerous 2:27s, but none were low enough to beat the record. There was a bit of movement from lower ranked runners, as It's Jared moved from 10th to 8th place. But as day 3 was coming to a close, the record remained at Zach's 2:27.19. Time was starting to run out, The game's top
Makes the
runners
tier
had
one
gotten
slow.
close, but nobody had been able to break through. But then, toward the end of day 3, those runners would get a bit of extra motivation. With all this attention on LEGO Star Wars speedruns,
George Lucas came into the
a new
equation
strategy
himself.
was found in the Grievous fight.
Oh.
Before, Grieve Cheese could be used to get a quick kill, but it was inconsistent as he would randomly block your shots. But by switching your resolution to 800 by 600 instead of 1920 by 1080, the quick kill becomes much more consistent. On average, you save 10 to 15 seconds.
Oh,
This
nice.
wasn't
Wait,
an
I got 4
enormous
shots in
time
there.
save, but it was enough to give these runners a pretty big boost. Yet still, Day 3 came to a conclusion, and no world records were set.
I bet they
24
find a more
hours to
consistent
go.
way for DV2
Through
is
the
my
first
guess.
3 days, neither Zach nor Roadhouse
maybe
had
not.
set a PB, but Zach certainly had the better chances of the two. He set numerous 227s, and with the new time save on Grieve
Nice of you,
Cheese,
Subcatro.
he was in position to get a record if he could just get there again. But on the evening of day 4, it was Roadhouse who found himself ahead of the record after episode 6. After utilizing the new strategy and having a nice start to episode 5, he remained in the lead heading into 5-5. This was the level that caused Zach to miss the record so many times in the last 3 days. But Roadhouse clutched it out.
Oh, it's
He got a
big.
first try DV2, and entering 5-6, his best possible time was 226.40. Roadhouse was one level away from getting a 226.
Door clip.
He needed to get door clip,
Don't do it to us.
and he did
Oh, let's go.
after wasting about 20 seconds.
Oh.
The run was now teetering on the line of
Fuck.
being a 226 or a 227. And in the end, the run finished as a
Oh.
227.03. It wasn't a 226, but it was a world record. It had taken over 3
Unlucky.
days, but the world record had finally been achieved.
Bittersweet world record.
And interestingly, at the exact same time, Zach was on a run in episode 3. Entering 5-5,
Thanks to the
this
resub,
run
Sean,
too
Solid,
had
and
potential to
Morsky,
get a
and
226.
All Night.
It was a chance to take the record right back. But his final 2 levels weren't good enough. He finished with a 227.07. If he had set this time an hour earlier, it would have been record. But he was too late. And with the event winding down, it was shaping up to be a pretty disappointing few days for Zach. He had done attempts for 4 days straight, and not only was there no 226, but he had lost his world record in the process. Runs continued on for the next couple hours, but the event had a hard cutoff of 11 p.m. to get your last run started. And as the last
seems
few
kind of
seconds
arbitrary.
before the deadline ticked away, Zach was on the main menu. Maybe he shouldn't even bother starting another run.
Oh, there's going to be a little
He had done
storybook
hundreds
conclusion.
of
He gets it
attempts
here.
over the past few days, and no 226 had
Thanks
come
for
out
resub,
of it.
MG.
Once I'd lost record, I was like, okay, I lost record. I no longer have a streak of records. It is what it is. That's totally fine. But I really wanted to win BTR, and I didn't want to go out on the note that I had, which was like multiple choked records in the event in previous days. Obviously, I wanted the record back. Obviously, I wanted to win the event. But getting the first 226 was still like the priority in my mind.
So, with just 8 seconds to go, Zach started his final run of the event.
There she
And in doing
goes.
so, he joined 6
The
other
world
runners who were
record.
in the middle of their own final runs.
And I was like, this
It's like
run
lottery
has to
winners
finish.
where they play like
There is
one
no
one
world
time
where
and
I
win.
reset here, because even if it doesn't PB, I have to get through this run no matter what. Once I started that run, I was like, I know I can do it. I didn't think I would, but I knew I could. During every cutscene, I would be looking at the restream, just seeing who was on a run, and I saw that Ginger was on a really good run. And the reason I noticed this was only because I could hear the commentary, and the commentary was just like losing their minds. They were like, I can't believe that Ginger is like on this insane run right now. And I was like, this must be really good for how much the commentary is talking about it.
Sure enough, it was insane. Ginger was the game's 7th place runner, with a personal best of 2:31.59. But with his back to the wall, at the very end of the event, he had somehow mustered a run on world record pace into episode 5.
He did it. He did it to him. He went plus ultra.
4 minutes ahead of his PB.
Jesus Christ.
Ginger has this capability sometimes to just play insane. He's an anomaly. He can sometimes just pull something out that you've never even thought was possible. And I knew that it was actually a realistic possibility that he would get record and even maybe the first 2:26 just with that run.
Was this really happening? The 7th place runner jumping straight to world record? Well,
You
Ginger
bet your
had an
sweet
up
bippy.
and down last few levels,
Oh,
and he
yikes.
finished with a 2:27.51.
Well, that sucks.
An enormous PB, and definitely one to be proud of. But it still wasn't the world
He
record.
could have had it.
Meanwhile,
That door
while
clip, man,
all eyes were on
Jesus.
Ginger, Zach had started off on an incredible run of his own.
So we typically talk about a good run as exiting. We pay attention to our episode 4 exit. That marks around the halfway point in the run. Previously, the best episode 4 exit was I think a 109.56. So getting a 109 episode 4 exit was something that had been done I think a total of 3 times ever. And so what happened was I got another 109, and that is something that I wasn't even looking for. You don't need a 109 for a 226. You don't even need a 109 for a 225. And that made me a little nervous.
But what happened next?
If he was human,
just
that
plain
is.
crazy. On one of the game's
But he's made of
greatest
ice.
paces ever, Zach proceeded to play the best episode 6 ever performed. Now, this was not only the fastest pace ever, it was the fastest pace ever by over a minute. Zach was in position to demolish the world record.
Damn, he's hitting him with a
He
big
just
pod
had to
right
hold it
now in the
together for the
webcam.
final 2 episodes.
The run was pretty much insane. It kind of bled a little bit of time in episode 3 until I got to the infamous library skip. When I got there, I prayed to the gods, and those gods did not give me a first try library skip. They did not give me a second try library skip. They did not even give me a 10th try library skip. So I ended up losing around 55 seconds on that trick.
Oh, no.
Now at this point, I was like, okay, this is fine. Now I wasn't happy. It's only a minute. Now that might sound like an insane thing to say. This was such an insane run that I could afford a minute time loss. So I did lose a minute, and everything was pretty much still in order. I was still way ahead of the record, and out of episode 3, going into episode 5, everything was definitely still set up for me to.
That's fucking
get
tragic,
a low
though.
226. It was
I
definitely.
haven't even
still
seen
in the
library skip be a tough
But
one
while
yet. That
Zach
must have
was
just
trying
been
to
really
navigate
unlucky.
through episode 5, the other players were finishing up their runs. And guess what? EJP Man, PB by over a minute. T-Fresh, PB by 18 seconds. Wii Super, PB by 40 seconds.
Oh, wow, it was magic in the air
And
that night.
all of this stuff is happening, and I'm on this run, and I'm like, my mind cannot comprehend everything going on. There's 4 people PBing, and so in my mind, I'm like, it's time to focus. So I close the stream.
With all the other runners finishing, all eyes were back on Zach. He made his way into 5-5, still ahead of the record by close to a minute.
When you're on pace, this level is the killer. I mean, it's no question. There isn't a level in the game that's even close
Yeah, you can't
to
fuck
this
up
hard.
DV2 here now.
And I get to DB2 skip.
That'll
And
haunt
I
you for the
realize
rest
that
of
my
your
hands are
life.
shaking. It's very hard to pause buffer while your hands are doing this the whole time. So I have this this thing that I usually tell myself.
Thanks to
I'm
resub
like,
beats.
you can be nervous later, but
no,
now
not first try.
you have to hit the trick. I get the trick third try, which is effectively my first actual attempt at the trick. DV2 skip definitely I would say is a harder trick, but DV3 when the pressure is on, when the nerves are setting in, is just brutal.
No.
So I miss it once, and I'm like, that's fine. But when I miss it twice, that's when I start to get a
Panic.
little concerned.
Yeah, panic
I
is
think I
setting
missed
in.
it 6 times before
Oh.
I finally got it. And at that point, I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be close. The best spin opening cutscene is over a minute long. And I think
That's
is
gonna be so
interesting.
sad.
You get almost 2 minutes.
So you
to
can't
sit
miss door
there
clip, not even
and
once.
be ready, to prepare. The whole time, I was not preparing. I was sitting there, shaking, being nervous out of my mind. My heart was beating super fast. I could not stop thinking about what was
Thanks
going
for
to
Brian
happen. I
Bounty
kept
and
telling
the
myself,
Ted
you can do
Lore
this, you can do this, you
and
can do
Bingel.
this. And I don't think it was helping.
The toughest trick in 5-6 is door clip. It was a trick that killed many runs over the years. But this run was perhaps more important than any before. Zach made his way through 5-6, and miraculously, he got door clip right away.
There you go. Alright, so
it.
now it's in the books.
He had some leeway, and as he entered the last room of the run, he was in position to get a
There she is.
record.
So I enter the end platform.
The world
I
record.
look at my timer, and I'm like, I can probably do
And a
this.
226.
So I get there, and I'm killing the stormtroopers, and it's going a lot worse than it usually does. I should have absolutely been cementing like a low 226 5x here, and I was actually starting to lose a lot more time than I thought.
What? How?
And I took a very bad death.
Oh,
I
you got killed?
No stormtroopers that just died, which is just a flat 2 seconds. And I was like, okay, now I'm cutting it really close. So I kill the last guy, I look at it, and I literally just say, please, 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 my God, please. I didn't know what to do.
He gets it with a
besides just
226.59.
I hit the door. I looked at the timer. 226.59.7.
Wow.
I was at first in disbelief for about half a second, and then I lost my mind. I could not believe it. I was just so proud of myself to finally get the 226. The amount of emotions running through me were just...
That's
unbelievable.
huge.
I couldn't believe it.
That's so big.
The 226 was incredible, the culmination of Zach's and others' efforts since the start of the year. But it wasn't the end of the road for LEGO Star Wars speedruns. There was still room for improvement as a lot of time was bled in episodes 3 and 5. So, even in the few months after the event, there's been a lot of record improvements. Just a few days after the event ended,
this is
Zach
August.
lowered the record by another 21 seconds, largely from cleaning up the final 2 episodes. He'd then lower the record down to the world's first
Jesus.
225, thanks in part to a new strategy in 5-4 by EJP Man. Meanwhile, both E Roadhouse and Ginger Legend were getting close. E Roadhouse had a couple runs that barely missed record due to a missed skip, and Ginger Legend had taken his PB down to a mid 226. Of those 3 runners, Zach would have the most success in the following few weeks, ultimately lowering the record to the first 224.
He's a prime wick.
But that's not who holds the record today. That honor goes to E Roadhouse, a 224.43. This record featured a fairly slow first 4 episodes, but had
Okay.
the strongest final 2
You got the
episodes
mantle back?
ever in a run. That's where the world record stands today. To most, LEGO Star Wars is a game that you played 10 years ago for fun,
I didn't ever play
then
it,
never
actually.
touched again. It was a neat distraction, and a source of nostalgia, but in the end, LEGO Star Wars was a game of the past. But to this dedicated group of speedrunners, this
Jesus
game is
Christ.
so much more than that. They've been able to
Yeah, I
extract
know the world record
thousands
got
of
lower. I
hours of
saw
enjoyment,
Summoning Salt tweet about it 2
creating
days ago.
rivalries and friendships that have
But I didn't want to
lasted
look at it. I didn't
years.
want to be spoiled.
They've given the game a renewed boost of popularity, years after its heyday. And over the course of a decade, this is how they've lowered its world record. Thanks for
Damn,
watching.
look at that. Jesus Christ. This period was probably the most turbulent down here. This was the one where it got like really crazy. Because a lot of the new faces came in around here, and then this is where it just got cutthroat. Fucking 16-hour-a-day runs.
World record.
Jesus Christ.
Thanks for watching.
Gotta love an active speedrunning
If you enjoyed the
community.
video, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out.
Crypto
Thanks.
chart. True. Thanks for your sub, Callow. Yeah, I definitely think I'm gonna pull the trigger on my idea I talked about earlier. I think I'm just gonna choose like some obscure fucking dog shit game, put a bounty on speedrunning it, and whoever has the fastest time after a month gets like 10 grand. See if we can find like the next like best speed game. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. Summoning Salt fucking crushed this, man. Every time I watch a Summoning Salt video, I immediately get back into speedrunning. So I think I'll probably speedrun Lego The Hobbit. Is this on Steam? I hope so. I don't want to have to download like an emulator for it. Let me see. Give me 2 seconds here. Let me see if I can find it on Steam.